other print disability, which makes reading, holding a book, or turning a page difficult or impossible. The content is copyrighted by the respective publishers. For more information, please visit us on the web at nfradioreading.org.
Hello, this is Patrick Connolly, and for the next hour, I'll be reading from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. These first articles are from Friday, March 27. On the first page, Uncertain Recovery. As Save the Michaels services wind down, its clients remain in limbo. This is by Heidi Truschel Light. While a state contract for case management with Save the Michaels is coming to an end next week, questions remain on continuing care for people who received substance use services from the downtown office. Save the Michaels of the World is a nonprofit organization focused on substance use, offering recovery coaching, peer-led groups, placement in treatment, transportation aid, and individual, family, and group support. Emily Boutain, clinical supervisor at the Lockport location, said, Save the Michaels offered 50 to 60 coaching and support groups each month for families, women, those suffering grief and loss, and Narcotics Anonymous. The organization provided 1,000 visits monthly and operated a drop-in center for the public weekdays from 9 a.m. to 5 p.m. that offered computers, Wi-Fi, TV, bagels, and coffee. Earlier this month, the Office of Addiction Services and Supports wrote in a statement that it had, quoting, identified serious fiscal and operational challenges, end quote, at the nonprofit and would cease funding it as of March 29th. The nonprofit has since closed its drop-in centers in Buffalo and Lockport, and the organization's Newfane facility is also threatened with closure. The question of whether other local mental health and substance abuse service providers have been tapped to serve dislocated clients of Save the Michaels remains largely unanswered. County spokesman Kevin Schuler emailed a statement from Laura Kellerman, director of the Niagara County Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse Services, that said, quoting, we are working with state officials and our local partners on a short-term measure to ensure available care while we work toward a long-term solution. In recent weeks, the doors of the city's Save the Michaels offices have displayed notices of canceled and relocated services. In an interview on March 10th, Kellerman said, quoting, we've been working with Save the Michaels to identify individuals that are... There's a problem with this sentence. I think it says, we've been working with Save the Michaels to identify individuals they are currently serving... We've been working with Save the Michaels to identify individuals they are currently serving who have been impacted and connect people with appropriate services, end quote. At that time, Kellerman said that, as part of a state recovery center contract, quoting, they would be anticipated to continue to provide services through the end of the month, end quote. Whether the county has helped clients connect to services and for how many people remains unaddressed. From a general email account, Horizon Health Services, which provides mental health and addiction services, including counseling at their Davison Road offices, declined an interview request offering a general statement about their agency. Christina Pearl, spokesperson for Horizons, did not return a phone message. The Community Health Center of Buffalo, CHCB, which serves as Niagara County's only federally qualified health center, provides behavioral health services from its offices at Main and Market Streets downtown, including prescription management. Last week, Al Hammonds, Chief Operating Officer for the CHCB, that's Community Health Center of Buffalo, said he hadn't heard from the county about contracting behavioral health services with the organization. Quoting, "Behavioral health and mental health is a huge need," Hammond said about Lockport, still quoting, "We're just getting the substance use disorder space, so I can't really speak to substance abuse in detail. We have psychiatric nurse practitioners and licensed mental health counselors on staff," end quote. Daniel Kolpois, Executive Director of the Niagara County Mental Health Association, said Thursday, quoting, "I was at a meeting yesterday with the Niagara County Department of Mental Health and Substance Abuse. Save the Michaels came up, and I know they're in touch with Save the Michaels daily. It is of the utmost urgency and importance to the county department. From our agency's perspective, we have started working with 4, 5, 6 of their clients who reached out to us for assistance in light of their closing. We're only 2 blocks away from Save the Michaels. We've started seeing them, and I know other agencies have as well," end quote. Kolpois said his organization provides mental health-related programming, but not clinical services. Quoting, "We're providing some peer support," he said. "We have support groups. We're not in the substance abuse field, although there is some crossover between mental health and substance abuse. We do housing and child care and community education as well. What the Save the Michaels clients have come in for is the peer support. Hopefully, we can absorb that number of clients easily enough," Kolpois said. "If it gets to 15, 20, 25, we would have to create some programming revolving around them specifically. We would work with anyone who came through our doors," end quote, end article. Still from the front page of the March 27th, Friday, Lockport Union-Sun Journal, an agriculture article. Niagara farmers say fertilizer prices will have serious impact. Local growers say costs will be passed on to consumers. And this is by Heidi Truschel Light. Local farmers are not buying Agriculture Secretary Brooke Rowland's statement on Wednesday that increased fertilizer prices during the war with Iran will not negatively impact most U.S. farmers. Rowland said on Fox Business Network that 80% of farmers, quoting, had already purchased their fertilizer by last year, end quote. Mark Russell, president of the Niagara County Farm Bureau, said higher fertilizer costs will impact the food supply available to consumers, with commodity crops affected first. Commodity crops are mass-produced grains, soybeans, peas, and peanuts that may be for human or livestock consumption, along with cotton, wool, and honey. Quoting, "In a regular economy, a price jolt like that impacts the decisions made on how much of those crops to plant," Mark Russell said. "There will be less food globally because of the fertilizer cost for commodities. It might take nearly a year to materialize. The price shock is now. The bigger bill is to be paid later," end quote. As an apple grower in Olcott, Mark Russell said tree fruit has a lower demand for fertilizer than commodities. He did not agree with Rowland's claim that farmers have already purchased the fertilizer they need. Quoting, Typically, purchases are done pretty late, he said. There hasn't been a lot of buying ahead of fertilizer. You like to do custom orders based on the needs of the crop or the soil. There really wasn't an awful amount of time to buy in advance. People who bought in advance are in the business of buying fertilizer. Whatever stocks they had at previous prices have either been committed or will be marked up. Now it becomes a matter of how important fertilizer is to your crop, Mark Russell said. For corn or soybeans, it's a much bigger expense as a percentage of costs and... Sorry, I have to turn the page here. Still quoting Mark Russell. For corn or soybeans, it's a much bigger expense. Fertilizer is a much bigger expense as a percentage of costs and net revenue of an acre. That's going to be a big deal and an impact on the bottom line, end quote. Max Russell, vice president of the Niagara Farm Bureau, grows apples like his cousin, along with 1,200 acres of corn and soybeans and 450 acres of fertilizer-intensive cabbage in Appleton. Quoting, I think it's a little ridiculous to say that higher fertilizer prices won't impact farmers. I haven't purchased any of my fertilizer needs for the 2026 season. I think there's still got to be a pretty big percentage of growers across the country, who are still purchasing a lot of their fertilizer. Because soybeans and wheat didn't make a lot of money last year, farmers probably didn't buy fertilizer ahead. I'd be surprised if that 80% number is close to being true. End quote. As this article is going a little long, I'm abbreviating it here. So if you would like to hear the remainder of the story, you can call Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Services at 716-821-5555. And staff will read the remainder of the article to you. Let's have a look at a few local articles, still from the Friday, March 27, Lockport Union-Sun Journal. NYPA fishing piers opening Wednesday. The New York Power Authority, that's NYPA, says fishing facilities, including the fishing pier at the base of the Robert Moses Niagara Hydroelectric Power Plant, will open for the season on Wednesday. The fishing piers near the Upper Mountain Fire Company at the Lewiston Reservoir and at the water intakes along the Upper Niagara River will also open for the season on Wednesday. Additionally, the fish cleaning station and handicap access elevator at the dam site will be available when temperatures remain above freezing. The fishing sites will close in sub-freezing temperatures or icy conditions. Seasonal NYPA fishing facilities are admission-free and open daily from dawn to dusk, weather permitting. Parking to access the fishing site at the base of the power plant is available near the road that leads to the pier. One of the unique features of Niagara fishing piers is that they give anglers access to the spring runs of large game species. Steelhead, brown trout, lake trout, and even king and coho salmon can be caught there, which are not typically available with shore fishing. For more information about the Power Authority's fishing piers, call 716-286-6662. Repeating, the New York Power Authority's fishing piers information number is 716-286-6662. An article about a rabid raccoon in Niagara County. Rabid raccoon reported in Middleport. A dog and a veterinary technician are both receiving rabies boosters after coming into contact with a rabid raccoon in Middleport. The raccoon had an encounter with the dog on March 20th on Johnson Road, and the dog was to receive a booster shot. The vet tech was potentially exposed to the virus while preparing the raccoon for lab testing and will also receive a booster shot. The dog's owner was also evaluated for possible secondary contact, but treatment was not deemed necessary. The Niagara County Department of Health submitted the raccoon for testing to the state's Wadsworth Center Griffin Laboratory on Wednesday, and it was confirmed rabid on Thursday. It was the second positive rabies case reported this week. On Tuesday, county health officials said a raccoon collected by USDA Wildlife Services officials on March 9th at an undisclosed location in Somerset had tested positive for rabies. Rabies in animals is a serious public health concern in Niagara County. Rabies is a viral disease that is almost always fatal to unvaccinated animals. Bats, raccoons, skunks, and foxes are all common wildlife carriers of the rabies virus. A rabid animal can shed the virus through direct contact even before symptoms appear. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. From the front page of the Union-Sun and Journal of Thursday, March 26th, an article about the Wide Waters Marina on the Erie Canal. Council takes action on waterfront matters. Fees increasing those docking at Wide Waters Marina. The Common Council approved establishing the local waterfront revitalization program with a budget of $100,000, consisting of $85,000 in grant funds and an additional $15,000 in a local match. Following an RFP process, the city selected Labella Associates, an architecture and engineering firm from Buffalo, to develop a local waterfront revitalization program plan using the funds. According to the RFP, request for proposal, a draft plan is due for review next March. Mike Marino, CEO at Nussbaumer and Clark, the engineering firm on retainer with the city, said the Erie Canal is designated an inland waterway, which makes it qualify for the state program. The council also approved increased fees for docking at Wide Waters Marina as follows. Boat launch, trailer parking, $5. Seasonal boat slips without electric or water, $10 per foot. Seasonal boat slips without electric but with water, $15 per foot, 15. Seasonal boat slips including electric and water, $20 per foot. Daily transient boat slips, $2 per foot. In other business, the council approved salary increases recommended by the Lockport Housing Authority Negotiating Committee for its employees at its regular meeting on Wednesday. For the CSEA Local 832 union employees, 5% increase for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2026, 3% increase for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2027, 3% increase for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2028. For the Management Association employees, 5% increase for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2026, 3% increase for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2027, 3% increase for the fiscal year beginning April 1st, 2028. On page 2 of the Thursday, March 26 issue, an article from Medina. Medina Triennial announces key artist commissions. Recording of Two Waters soundscape set for Saturday at Old Medina High School. The Medina Triennial, a new contemporary art triennial centered in the village of Medina along the Erie Canal, has announced key artist commissions, sites, and the theme for its inaugural edition, taking place June 6th through September 7th. Artists from 5 continents have been invited to present site-responsive installations and public programs. Titled All That Sustains Us, the free village-wide exhibition features more than 100 artworks by 35 artists and collectives. It marks the first recurring exhibition of this scale to take place in an American community of Medina's size, positioning small-town geographies as vital sites of cultural and critical imagination. Grounded in place and shaped through community engagement, the triennial features new commissions alongside recent and historical works across 12 indoor and outdoor sites. The curatorial framework of the triennial site at the intersection of art, ecology, architecture, and rural contexts, and considers maintenance not only as a physical art of upkeep, but also as a social, political, and environmental process. The triennial brings together artistic practices that examine how civic and ecological systems are structured by labor, regulation, extraction, and repair. At its core, the triennial asks, what essential efforts and commitments are required to sustain life in our fractured world? Skipping through most of the rest of the article, the conclusion, the Medina Triennial, initiated with major support provided by New York Power Authority and the New York State Canal Corporation, was conceived as part of a broader strategy to showcase the Erie Canal as active civic infrastructure. For more information, visit medinatriennial.org. This next article from the Thursday, March 26th Union-Sun and Journal, the Lockport Union-Sun and Journal. Marijuana bust made at Lewiston-Queenston Bridge. Canadian citizens found to have 6 pounds of pot hidden in vehicle. 2 Canadian citizens were arrested on Saturday after U.S. Customs and Border Protection officers at the Lewiston-Queenston Bridge seized several bags of marijuana hidden throughout their vehicle. Customs officers took Andrea Selvright, 43, the driver of a Mercedes-Benz SUV, and Daniel Hughes, 35, into custody and turned them over to the Lewiston Police Department, which charged them with felony counts of second-degree possession of marijuana. On Saturday, customs officers at the bridge were interviewing the 2 occupants of the Mercedes-Benz SUV when a narcotics-detecting dog alerted them to the vehicle. Customs officers scanned the vehicle and detected anomalies in both the rear quarter panel and trunk door. After examining the anomalies, officers discovered 6 vacuum-sealed bags of a green, leafy substance. That substance tested positive for the properties of marijuana. The bags weighed approximately 6 pounds and had an estimated street value of more than $16,000. Quoting, "Our highly trained K-9 team played a critical role in the successful interdiction of narcotics concealed within a vehicle," end quote, Acting Port Director Sharon Swiatek said. Again, quoting, "The detection abilities of our K-9 and diligence of our officers led to the discovery and seizure of illegal substances and the transfer of 2 suspects to local authorities for criminal prosecution." End quote, end article. Court brief. Tonawanda man heading to prison after gun threat. After waving a gun at a man outside of a supermarket last year A 35-year-old Tonawanda man will spend up to 12 years in prison. Avello E. Peña, 35, of Tonawanda, was sentenced Wednesday before Erie County Court Judge James Barniesi and received a determinate sentence of 12 years in prison, followed by 5 years of post-release supervision. Peña was sentenced as a second violent felony offender. On June 17, 2025, a complainant reported that the driver of a vehicle waved a gun, which placed him in reasonable fear of harm. The crime occurred in the parking lot outside of a grocery store on the 1200 block of Jefferson Avenue in Buffalo. A short time later, at approximately 6:45 p.m., Buffalo police initiated a traffic stop of a vehicle on East Utica Street and Rohrer Avenue. Police recovered 2 loaded illegal guns during a search of the vehicle. One of the weapons was equipped with an illegal extended magazine. Peña, the operator of the vehicle, resisted while being placed under arrest. In February, Peña pleaded guilty to 2 counts of second-degree criminal possession of a weapon, Class C violent felonies, 1 count of third-degree criminal possession of a weapon, Class D felony, 1 count of second-degree menacing, and 1 count of resisting arrest, Class A misdemeanors. Peña entered a guilty plea to all counts in the indictment. Today, a final order of protection was issued on behalf of the victim, which remains in effect until 2046. A co-defendant, Ronnie Midget, 39, of Buffalo, previously pleaded guilty before Judge Barniesi to 1 count of second-degree attempted criminal possession of a weapon, which is a Class D violent felony. He pleaded guilty to the charge in full satisfaction of the indictment in October. Midget faced a maximum of 7 years in prison, but was sentenced to 3 years of probation on Wednesday. Still from the Thursday, March 26 issue of the Niagara Gazette Lockport Journal, one of the largest salt mines in the world exists under Lake Erie. Written by Sue Ograki, Patrick Aftsora Orsagos, and Patrick Whittle of the Associated Press, out of Cleveland, Ohio. Below Cleveland, in a subterranean world many surface dwellers don't know exists, miners extract a crucial winter mineral, salt. The Whiskey Island salt mine, owned by food giant Cargill, helps supply road salt across the Northeast and Great Lakes, where a colder, snowier than usual winter has driven demand. Many municipalities exhausted supplies that typically last through spring, said Cargill spokesman Emily Tangeman. Quoting, "Our teams have been working overtime since September to support customers across the snowbelt," Tangeman said, noting that early, persistent winter weather boosted demand across the industry. The mine beneath Lake Erie, one of the world's largest, produces 3 million to 4 million tons, in parentheses 2.7 million to 3.6 million metric tons, annually, although that can fall short of demand in especially harsh winters. Located 1,800 feet or 549 meters underground, it's accessed from Whiskey Island, an industrial area on the shore right beside downtown Cleveland. The mine opened in the 1960s and operates year-round, with salt extracted by drilling and blasting through vast tunnels formed from an ancient inland sea that dried up millions of years ago. Inside, the mine is a maze of roughly rectangular caverns with chalky white walls and ceilings that extend for miles. It's dimly lit and often pitch black beyond the glare of headlamps and floodlights. Heavy machinery and conveyor belts rumble as small ATVs whisk miners around. Maintenance Superintendent George Campbell said operations are continuous with downtime used for upkeep and repairs to keep production steady. Cargill said it is prioritizing shipments to ensure salt reaches the areas of greatest need as winter lingers in some regions. Frequent smaller storms also increase usage, Tangeman said, requiring repeated salting and creating logistical challenges. A return to harsher conditions across the eastern U.S. meant some cities, including Boston, Bangor, Maine, and Ithaca, New York, shivered through their coldest seasons in more than a decade. And winter weather is still not over in some parts of the country, so it's not over in the Cleveland mine either. Campbell said there's still decades of salt left to be extracted. Quoting, "I think that we have enough reserves to continue to keep people working for a long time," Campbell said. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Now, from the Wednesday, March 25th, 2026 front page of the Lockport Union-Sun Journal, Palace Theatre to feature the two Kennys, Kenny Bird and Kenny Hawkins, coming to town on April 4th. Heidi Truschel Light is the author. After years of talking about performing a doubleheader, two of the area's national recognized entertainers will bring their acts to the historic Palace Theatre on April 4th. Ventriloquist and comedian Kenny Bird, who has toured with Broadway and TV star Ben Vereen, will open the event with Kenny Hawkins, Buffalo Music Hall of Fame guitarist and composer for Rick James, leading his band and singers through musical numbers. For former City Council member Flora Hawkins, the event will bring her long relationship with both Kennys full circle. Flora remembers growing up with Bird on Market Street. In 2012, she married Hawkins, a Buffalonian. "I am a Lockportian, and I want to bring him to Lockport," Flora said of her work behind the scenes. "He's really good," quoting, "he's really good, and I've been telling people they don't want to miss this show. When he talks and sings, you don't see his mouth moving at all." End quote. Bird said he met Rita Moreno and Ben Vereen, star of the groundbreaking Roots TV miniseries, in the late 70s at Melody Fair, a former music venue on Niagara Falls Boulevard. Opening for Vereen's live performances led to Bird performing ventriloquism on the popular Dinah Shore and Merv Griffin TV variety shows, and continues to work as a corporate event entertainer. Quoting, "Comedy was a natural thing around our house," Bird said. "I came from a family of 13 children. Everybody was always creating some kind of joke or humor about everyday stuff. I cut up socks and made some puppets, and I had a built-in audience." While Bird said his little brothers and sisters would tell him his lips were moving in the early days, they were still caught up in the performance. Bird said he realized it was the life he put into the character that made it entertaining. At one point, he said he turned the puppet toward him and had it say, "Your lips were moving." Everyone laughed. Quoting, If you treat the character like someone else you would be talking to, people are going to feel its life, he said. Giving the puppet gestures, moments of hesitation, stammering, and pretending to misunderstand each other all bring out an engaging personality, he said. Still quoting, because you're putting emotions in the voices, or personality or dynamics and dimensions in the voice, it can change the way it looks. End quote. Early on, Bird worked as a youth and family coordinator at the YMCA's Main Street location. Quoting, during the time I was there, I had a bigger audience than my brothers and sisters, he said. I would take a Tuesday afternoon, all these kids would pile into the lobby, and I would pull out my puppet and create and have a conversation. I would develop routines, ideas, or concepts. It got to the point where I would go to do this, and at 4 p.m. you'd see more and more parents. It got to the point where I had to say, could the parents move to the back? End quote. At a ventriloquism convention in Kentucky, Bird was named one of the top ventriloquists to perform, and he was on his way. Musician Kenny Hawkins said, teaming up with Bird was a great fit because, quoting, playing on the road for years, we always had a comedian open up. We get along, and we're going to have a good time, end quote. Hawkins has recorded and performed with Rick James, Mary J. Blige, and the Mary Jane Girls, Boys to Men, the Goo Goo Dolls, and many other high-profile musicians. Recalling his work with Buffalo's Rick James, Hawkins said, quote, I produced and wrote a lot of songs like 17 and Sexy, My House, and Wild and Crazy Love. We had a thing where we were like Mutt and Jeff. He would play an idea for me, and I'd put it together. He was a phenomenal artist on stage, with an energy like no other. He was outrunning us, and we're in shape. He was pretty bold. In Motown, everyone was a class act, and he was the bad boy of Motown. He pretty much took like a rock and roll artist to R&B. Describing performing with Rick James, Hawkins said laughingly, we had these stage bombs, and you can't hear anything after that. All you can do is watch the drummer. A lot of the time, you can't see anything because of the flash of the bombs, even because the flash of the bombs even blinds the audience. We'd have to turn our heads. The band repeated the experience while touring across the nation and in Japan. Hawkins said the April event will offer family-friendly fare. His band will include recording artist and American Idol vocal coach Tonya Diona. Also, soulful showman Corey Comer and guitarist, vocalist, and songwriter Tom Lawrence, who has long performed with the Beatles tribute band Switch. Quoting, we've got good players and everybody's played on the road, Hawkins said. We're going to give back to the arts. Comedy and music are those two things that bring people together. We just want to bring people together to have a good time and get away from these daily issues that are going on today. Sometimes you just gotta laugh to stop from crying, end quote. An article from Lewiston, Fairbanks Restaurant announces temporary closure. Operators at Lewiston's Frontier House reevaluating the business, by Robert Creenan. Less than a year after opening to the public, Lewiston's Fairbanks Restaurant will be temporarily closing for a reevaluation. The restaurant, based in the Frontier House, posted on Facebook Monday evening that the closure was necessary as it looks over its operations with the goal to strengthen its impact in Lewiston. Quoting, we sincerely thank everyone for the tremendous support we've experienced over the past 9 months, the post reads. We can say wholeheartedly it is our goal to reopen these doors and continue serving you the best way we know possible. End quote. Restaurant ownership could not be reached for further comment on Tuesday. Jake Strauser and Dan Hagan started Fairbanks after having operated the Billy Club restaurant in Buffalo's Allentown neighborhood for nearly 10 years. After first embarking on the new venture in late 2023, during which they overcame numerous setbacks and unforeseen obstacles, the restaurant finally opened on the Frontier House's first floor this past June. Hagan and Strauser emphasized getting their menu ingredients from local farms, with the restaurant space having room for 100 patrons, a bar, and space for private parties. Future plans for the business had involved adding more private dining spaces to the basement and outdoor dining. This restaurant is part of Ellicott Development's renovation of the 200-year-old building at 460 Center Street, Lewiston, which is on the National Register for Historic Places. The first floor space was formerly occupied by a McDonald's, which closed in 2004. All Fairbanks gift cards can be honored at the Billy Club or upon the restaurant's reopening. Key to the Locks nominations wanted. Annual award recognizes exemplary community spirit, Erie Canal-centered service. Nominations are being accepted for the 21st Annual Key to the Locks Award. Nomination forms are available at the Niagara History Center, 215 Niagara Street, and by download from www.niagarahistory.org under the events page. The deadline for nominations is April 20th. The award was established to recognize persons in Niagara County who exemplify the community's spirit or promote the heritage or preservation of the historic Erie Canal. Quoting, "Celebrate your fellow peers for their generosity and service to the community, especially as this year marks the 250th anniversary of the birth of the United States of America, a time to reflect on our shared civic duty to our fellow man," Niagara History Center Executive Director James Lester urged. Nominate those members of your community who you feel have gone above and beyond. The 2026 Key to the Locks Award will be presented in a public ceremony at the Erie Canal Discovery Center on May 16th. The 2025 award was given to Steve Cotton, Lockport Locks Heritage District Volunteer and Ambassador. Recent previous winners have included Reverend Wayne Jagow for his lifetime of volunteer community service in Niagara County, Charles Begley for decades of volunteer community service and teaching about Lockport and Erie Canal, Jacqueline Connolly for her years of volunteer service to Lockport Locks Heritage District improvements, George Fritz for his support of local nonprofit organizations and his work to promote Lockport and its canal area, and David Chatt for organizing and running the volunteer lock tender program. You are listening to a reading of articles and features from the Lockport Union-Sun Journal on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. These articles are from the March 24th issue of that paper. Canal Fest treasurer takes plea. Sanborn woman will repay more than $26,000 stolen from festival organization. Written by Rick Pfeiffer. A former treasurer of Canal Fest has pleaded guilty to stealing more than $26,000 in a plea deal with Niagara County prosecutors. Carrie Hine, 45, of Sanborn, pleaded guilty Monday afternoon to a charge of fourth-degree grand larceny during a brief proceeding before New York State Supreme Court Justice Mario Jacobe. Hine also made a $9,000 partial restitution payment to the Canal Fest organization as a condition of her plea. She will be required to pay the remainder of the stolen funds as a condition of her final sentence. She faces up to 1 1/3, apparently, to 4 years in prison when she returns to court in May. Jacobe made no commitment on sentencing. He could give Hein a term of probation and no prison time. In taking the plea, Hein admitted that she stole $26,881.07 from the organization between December 2023 and August 2025. An audit by the organization in September showed $17,752.75 was missing from a Canal Fest account through unauthorized withdrawals. In a sworn statement given to North Tonawanda Police later that month, Hein claimed that she had only stolen $11,249.75. Hein claimed that she had only stolen $11,249.75 from the festival's key bank account. Hein also told police that she was the only person responsible for the theft. Niagara Falls Police Department detectives originally charged Hein with third-degree grand larceny. Peter Chiner Jr., the new Canal Fest treasurer, said he was satisfied with Hein's plea, quoting, "She pleaded guilty to a felony that will follow her," he said. "We followed the process, and the process did what needed to happen." End quote. The full restitution payment, Chiner said, will make the organization financially whole. Quoting, "We're confident we did what was right," Chiner said. Publicly available nonprofit IRS 990 filings from the Canal Fest show it had a nearly $42,000 operating surplus for 2024 before having a nearly $41,000 deficit the following year. It reported $254,000 in expenses for 2025 compared to $212,000 in revenue that year. Both are notable increases compared to $171,000 in revenue and $156,000 in expenses for 2023 and $194,000 in revenue and $152,000 in expenses for 2024. Reported assets for 2025 were $33,300, less than half of the $74,800 reported the year before, but comparable to the $37,200 for 2023. Canal Fest has announced that it will move all of its activities for 2026 from the Tonawanda North Tonawanda downtowns to North Tonawanda's Gratwick Park. City of Tonawanda officials reportedly declined to participate in the festival after a dispute over the public safety costs associated with the event. Historical Association of Lewiston Talk, Empire State Express train. Richard Waite is guest speaker at Thursday's program for March. The Historical Association of Lewiston will host Richard Waite for its March program, quoting, "She went like the wind. Engine 999 set a world record." The breaking of the 100-mile-per-hour speed barrier by a man-made vehicle was accomplished by steam locomotive 999 between Batavia and Buffalo, piloted by Buffalo's Charlie Hogan in 1893. Waite will discuss how Empire State Express was able to reach 100 miles per hour and what happened with Hogan after the historic ride. Waite is a graduate of Alfred Tech, where he studied industrial chemistry, and both Canisius College and the University of Buffalo, where he studied European intellectual history and historiography. After retiring from Williamsville North High School, where he taught history, psychology, and sociology, Waite wrote a series of articles for the Western New York Heritage magazine, which highlight several intriguing events, institutions, and personalities encountered in our Western New York past. This community event is free and open to all, but donations are greatly appreciated to help support the museum. Refreshments will be served at the presentation, which takes place at 7 p.m. Thursday at the Lutheran Church of the Messiah Fellowship Hall, 915 Oneida Street, Lewiston. This article from the Tuesday, March 24th Niagara Gazette Lockport Journal is from the Niagara Business section. New state law requires stores to accept cash. They also can't charge consumers a higher price if they pay in cash. New York Attorney General Letitia James recently issued a consumer alert reminding New Yorkers that stores throughout the state must allow customers to pay in cash. Under a new law now in effect, it's illegal for a New York food store or retail establishment to refuse payment in cash for goods or services. The new statewide law mirrors a similar New York City law that has been in effect since 2020. James encourages all New Yorkers to submit a complaint to the Office of the Attorney General if they believe a store is violating the law. Quoting, "New Yorkers have a right to service, no matter how they choose to pay," James said in a press release. Businesses cannot deny New Yorkers access to necessities like food and clothing by refusing to take cash or charging shoppers more for paying in cash. I will not hesitate to enforce this law to protect consumers across our state. End quote. Under the law, food stores and other retail establishments cannot require consumers to pay by credit card or use another cashless transaction method to complete their purchase. They also cannot charge consumers a higher price if they pay in cash. Stores that violate the new law will face maximum civil penalties of $1,000 for the first violation and $1,500 for each succeeding violation. The new law has a few exceptions. Stores don't have to accept bills in denominations above $20. Stores don't have to accept cash for orders made by telephone, mail, or internet unless that transaction takes place at the store. The new law also doesn't apply if a store provides a device on its premises to convert cash into a prepaid card. However, the store cannot charge a fee or require the prepaid card be loaded with a minimum amount above $1. New Yorkers who believe a store is violating the new law should call the Office of the Attorney General at 1-800-771-7755. That's 1-800-771-7755. Or file a complaint online at tinyurl.com/298YT4J3, those letters all in lowercase. Again, tinyurl.com/298YT4J3. Tops celebrates its 50th store remodel in Tonawanda. Grocer has invested more than $100 million in its stores, staff reports. Tops Friendly Markets recently completed a $2.3 million remodel of its store at 890 Young Street in Tonawanda, marking the company's 50th major store remodel in 6 years. The project is part of Tops' capital improvement project, which has included more than $100 million invested across its 3-state imprint. Tops will celebrate the grand reopening with a ceremonial ribbon cutting on March 4th. That looks like a mistake. I think it's Tops celebrated the grand reopening with a ceremonial ribbon cutting on March 4th, welcoming customers, community members, and local officials to tour the renovated store. Quoting, "This remodel reflects our continued commitment to our customers and the communities we serve," said Ron Ferry, president of Tops Friendly Markets. "By reinvesting in Tonawanda, we're delivering a more modern, convenient shopping experience while continuing to offer great value." The 52,000 square foot store features refreshed interior and exterior decor, upgraded lighting, enhanced self-checkouts, renovated restrooms, expanded digital signage, and upgraded customer amenities. Fresh and specialty departments have been expanded, including Boar's Head premium deli meats, a larger cheese shop, a live lobster tank, and an enhanced gluten-free selection featuring products from local Vinchet's Bakery. The store also offers expanded prepared foods, fresh sushi, rotisserie chicken, and made-to-order meals. Customers will also find convenient services including Instacart pickup and delivery, DoorDash delivery, order-ahead meals and catering, the Flash Food app, and a full-service pharmacy. The grand reopening celebration will continue throughout March with special promotions and in-store events. You have been listening to a reading of articles and features from current issues of the Lockport Union-Sun and Journal. We read from the Lockport Union-Sun and Journal every Saturday at 5 p.m. Your reader has been Pat Connolly. Thank you for listening.
Coming up next in the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, we have a reading of the Wall Street Journal Off-Duty section. At 7 o'clock, we got Harper's Magazine, and at 8 o'clock, we have Sports Illustrated. Stay tuned for these readings and more throughout the day. You're listening to the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service. Radio readers broadcast daily readings 24 hours a day of newspapers, magazines, and books to area people who are blind or have a print disability who are provided reading radios. Our broadcast signal is provided at no charge by WNED. Radio reading broadcasts throughout the city of Buffalo, Western New York, and Southern Ontario's Niagara Peninsula. For more information on the Niagara Frontier Radio Reading Service, call us at 716-821-5555. following program is intended for listeners who are blind, have low vision, or have another print disability,